Torrential rains hit the city of Douala, flooding the town, impeding the movement of goods and persons, and destroying some houses. In this newscast, details of the actual situation and the reaction of Littoral Governor Samuel Dieudonné Ivahadibowa. Today, August 21, marks 34 years since the worst natural disaster ever at Lake Nyos in the northwest region killed over 1,700 people and 3,500 animals. What development projects can incite returnees find their homeland habitable? Get the explanation in this edition. Plus, Cameroon's pioneer female minister Delphine Changa begins her final journey to the world beyond. Her remains were coffined this Friday at the Yaoundé Referral Hospital mortuary in the presence of Central Regional Governor representing the head of state, ministers, and the Lekan board members. And those are top stories. Thanks for joining us on this edition of the news with me, Gladys Tata.
Each of us must comply with the measures that have been taken.
Welcome back. The floods that hit the town of Douala this Friday have displaced populations, destroyed buildings, and paralyzed movements. Littoral Governor Samuel Dieudonné Ivahadibowa in this regard held a crisis meeting to take emergency measures. Alphonse Abongwa reports from CRTV Littoral in Douala.
Douala wakes up in the wrong side of the bed this Friday, August 21. The heavens have unleashed angry rains upon the city and the population are gripped by confusion. The intensity of the damage is immense. At the Beseke ceremonial ground venue for major national events in the city such as the National Day, cargo trucks, tourism vehicles, taxis and commercial bikes have been battling with water to be in motion. The news is not good at all in inundation-prone neighborhoods like Makepe Misoke, Mabanda, Sablo Bonamusadi and Bepanda. Here, houses have been engulfed by water and in worst-case scenarios, people escaped the venom of the water and found themselves on rooftops. Where they will spend the day or night is a serious question unanswered. Officials of the region under the coordination of the governor Samuel Dieudonné Ivahadibowa have mobilized to take immediate rescue measures. For now, no official figures of loss of life have been reported, but the material damage are already visible. The floods come barely days after the Minister of Decentralization and Local Development instructed municipal executives nationwide to take preemptive measures following the warning of the National Observatory for Climate Change regarding heavy downpour in the months ahead.
And as you just saw there on those images, the effects of the heavy downpour and floods have rendered many in the economic capital, Douala, homeless. And following the floods, the governor of the littoral region, Samuel Dieudonné Ivahadibowa, has just held a crisis meeting to see how they can tackle the situation. Cynthia Etim was on the now tells us on the outcome of the crisis meeting in Douala.
The torrential rainfall Friday, August 21, that resulted to floods in the economic capital and rendered many homeless, preoccupied the governor of the littoral region, who mobilized his état-major. The crisis meeting held to this effect was to see in what ways they can immediately take rescue measures regarding the floods.
The immediate measure is to ask people to leave the place where they are overloaded with water, so where the floods are.
Besides the rain, the governor says the population do not want to divorce with high-risk zones.
The government have sent in 2016 a team here in Douala to evaluate how can we face some catastrophic situations like floods. They have asked also population to build houses where they can be safe.
During the meeting, the city mayor, Roger Mbasandine, said the tides of the Wuri have risen and that in the previous weeks, the city council has been cleaning drainages in preparation for this. However, much is still needed to be done.
Meantime, weather experts in Douala have warned that the littoral, Adamawa and western islands of the country are still within specs of another possible flooding, going by their forecast readings. They have described today's flooding in the economic capital as one of the most frightening. Dixon Asher spoke to a meteorological engineer, Fro Mobele Tazo, who sizes up the situation in the following report.
The warning of an imminent flooding, like what the economic capital has just witnessed, was communicated by weather experts across the national territory and the coastal regions highly susceptible.
We discovered that there was a pressure system that developed over the Atlantic Ocean that went through the Gulf of Guinea and settled in littoral, which actually is a cause of what we are having today.
Douala has been hit, but the forecast readings do not clear the skies of all threats.
Douala, Adamawa, and the Western Highlands, they are still on the red. That's to show that we can still have situations like this. Since this pressure system is still this way, it proves that we can still have situations like this. But we have other natural phenomena that can take place to avoid situations like this.
This latest flooding has been the most frightening in the economic capital, impounded by the poor drainage network system of the city. Actions are expected to prevent the loss of lives.
On August 21, 1986, a limnic eruption took place on Lake Nyos in the northwest region of Cameroon, killing over 1,700 people plus 3,500 livestock. The scale of the disaster led to much study on how a recurrence could be prevented, with government preoccupied on how to implement development projects which will enable the returnees find their homeland habitable. But what is actually being done by the state for the Nyos victims to return? Constantine Bomb has been finding out.
Lake Nyos disaster occurred on August 21, 1986. Today makes it 34 years. The eruption released gas that descended onto nearby villages, displacing all the air, suffocating people and livestock within 25 kilometers. About 1,500 survivors were resettled in 7 sites, 2 in Boyo Division and 5 in Menchu. 34 years after the incident, the number has increased to about 5,000 people needing assistance from the government.
Degassing the lake and reinforcing the dam. Degassing of Lake Nyos is done at 90%. The dam is reinforced. The road link Nyos village and the lake have been done.
The action plan of the government is accompanied by the EU and the United Nations Development Programme.
To sensitize partners to accompany the government to continue the program so that people can return on their site.
The limnic eruption at the lake killed 1,746 people and 3,500 livestock.
One of those who survived the Lake Nyos gas burst 34 years ago is Theophilus Ndongdong. The 38-year-old has been able to overcome the trauma of losing his siblings and a parent, and now lives in Bamenda, where he has become a successful businessman and a pastor. Eric Langmia Wofford had a chat with him and fired the following report from CRTV Northwest in Bamenda.
Theophilus Ndongdong was 4 when the incident occurred on August 21st, 1986.
My elder sister and her follower died because they were sleeping beside me that night. And when my mother stepped in, I could perceive the scent, but I didn't know what it was. I could perceive the scent of like kerosene mixed with bad egg.
He is the last of the 4 survivors amongst 10 children. Ndongdong Theophilus Fu had no hope when his uncle, who was sponsoring him in school, died. He enrolled to become a motor mechanic in the southwest region. While in the garage, he never stopped dreaming of going back to school.
Went to an evening school on scholarship, and God helped me to succeed. I went through, had my ordinary levels, had my advanced level.
Today, his knowledge in motor mechanics has helped him to become a successful businessman.
I am able to buy cars at low prices, repair them, put them up to standard, a certain standard, and then sell them back.
Theophilus Ndongdong is also the founder of the Christ Mission International Church, whose mission is impacting lives and transforming destinies.
The wearing of face masks in public places will be mandatory until further notice.
The parents of a 10-year-old girl have been taken into police custody on suspicion of physical abuse on the child. The girl, known as Yahweh, who is said to have undergone maltreatment for close to 6 months, is currently in the care of medics and officials of social affairs. Clarice Aretakang went investigating and came back with the following findings.
It is in this apartment on the first floor of this story building at the Nkolanga neighborhood of Hawaii that 10-year-old Yahweh is said to have suffered abuse at the hands of her parents.
It has been for about 6 months that he has been beating the child every day, that she's possessed with evil spirits. She's the cause of all his downfalls. We were hearing cries. She was screaming all the time.
We noticed that the child looked stressed, neglected and withdrawn. What alerted us were the cries and screams. The kids were not going to school.
Signs of distress which led concerned neighbors to spring into action.
Recently, she was beaten from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. I could not sleep. I waited for her parents to go out in the morning, and I went upstairs with a ladder and did a video of the child. I took that to the police.
The intervention of the forces of law and order saw the victim rushed to a nearby health center for immediate medical and psychological care. The nature of the situation calls for a number of actions to follow their course.
The child has been placed in the care of medics because it's a case of violence and maltreatment. Her siblings have been handed over to social affairs services. She will join them later. We are trying to get in touch with other family members who will care for them while the investigations go on. We will be hearing not only the children, but the parents too.
While the case is in the hands of the police, investigations have opened to connect the dots in order to get the full picture of the story.
In fact, Clarice, let justice take its course. The respect of barrier measures remain a key factor in the COVID-19 fight. Public Health Minister Manauda Malachi was firm while speaking at a press briefing in Yaoundé today. The minister is pleased that government's riposte strategy against the coronavirus is yielding positive results, but fears that their efforts may be in vain if the population lets down their guard. Yoti Kaleli Songe tells us more.
With a recovery rate of 91% and a death rate of about 2%, COVID-19 in Cameroon, the authorities say, has been contained, but doesn't guarantee a win, nor has it been ousted. Much of this success because the population has been respecting barrier measures.
It is thanks to the role played by each of us that we are able to resist and even hope to overcome this epidemic.
And the plea is for the people not to disregard basic hygiene measures, physical distancing and the continuous wearing of face masks, as officials fear there's likely to be a resurgence of infections.
Healthcare workers and those who support them have not ceased to give of their times, energy, know-how, and to show their continuous determination to save lives. These collective efforts have enabled us to achieve a social better life that we are called to consolidate.
The minister has therefore called on religious authorities and traditional rulers to join mayors and continue sensitization in their respective communities.
Government officials and those of the civil society who contribute to the elaboration and execution of the national budget have hailed the ongoing 2019-2020 implementation of the Public Finance Management Reform. This was during the 10th session of the Steering Committee of a Platform for Dialogue on Public Finance Management, which was chaired by Finance Minister Louis-Paul Mutazi. Ewane Pole has more.
The 10th session of the Steering Committee of a Platform for Dialogue on Public Finance Management held to evaluate the 2020 midterm implementation of the ongoing 2019-2021 reforms.
Many of activities have been postponed because of the regulation measure put in place by the government to avoid the progression of the pandemic. Despite of that, we have done a lot.
The Minister of Finance, Louis-Paul Motaze, underlined that there is progress, particularly at the level of preparation of the national budget.
The law on the statistic has been adopted by the Parliament. The President of the Republic has signed the decree on the public management accountability.
The current reforms are to enhance transparency and efficiency in public finance management and to strengthen accountability in the use of public funds.
The northern regions of Cameroon and the cities of Douala and Buea will soon witness an improvement in their agro-pastoral, fisheries and market gardening activities. This thanks to two partnerships agreements signed today in Yaoundé by the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Gabriel Mbairobe, and the resident representative of the Food and Agricultural Organization, FAO, Athman Vramvili. Gilbert Ongene with the details.
By putting ink on paper and exchanging these documents, these officials are unleashing the process to modernize and intensify market gardening in and around Douala and Buea.
This partnership will help us to tackle the hunger.
The cooperation accords also provide technical and financial means and know-how for a sustainable irrigation scheme in the three northern regions of Cameroon.
Farmers, year after year, suffer from lack of water or a lot of water.
Government, alongside foreign partners like the FAO and the African Development Bank, wants to effect a paradigm shift by turning the odds on the ground into possibilities in favor of agro-pastoral production.
As government insists that the population do not relent in the COVID-19 fight, Cameroonians too are reminded that screening for the coronavirus is ongoing in the different centers nationwide. Public health experts say knowledge of one's status helps to reduce the propagation of the virus in the country. Tonight, Baldwin Sama, together with his guest at the Public Health Emergency Operations Center, Dr. Joseph Fonkam, will enlighten us on why some people, after testing for COVID-19, are neither negative nor positive when the result is out. Hello, Baldwin.
Good evening to you, Gladys Tata, and welcome. It becomes quite disturbing for most persons who have themselves screened for COVID-19, and when they have their results, these results are neither negative or positive. They become psychologically disturbed. They don't know exactly what to do. They don't know exactly the next step to take, and that is what we shall be discussing tonight with our guest, Dr. Joseph Fonkam, who is a virologist, and we refer to such cases as doubtful cases. Good evening, Doctor.
Good evening, Baldwin.
What is a doubtful case, and how regular does a doubtful case occur during this period that we have massive testing for COVID-19?
Effectively, Baldwin, doubtful cases can be classified into two categories. From a technical point of view, a doubtful result is a result that falls within the indeterminate range, what we call the gray zone, or that ends with an invalid result. Generally, what do? We repeat this result on the same sample, and in most cases, we have a conclusive result at the end. So we often render result as either negative or positive. Now, on a community point of view also, a doubtful result is a result that appears to be negative for somebody who seems to have symptoms. And this is possible because in our context, 50% of those who are symptomatic have other flu-like viruses. That's why it is important to screen in order to select those that have to be treated. Also, a doubtful result might be a positive result for someone who have no symptom. This one also is possible in Cameroon because half of our positive cases are asymptomatic. That's why we have to screen them during massive testing such that we put them on quarantine to avoid the virus transmission.
And finally, doctor, we know that it becomes psychologically disturbing. Somebody who goes for screening and when his results are neither negative or positive, what should he do? Should he redo the test?
So generally, if you go for testing and you seem to have any doubt with your result, the very first issue, it might be because you came very early when the viral load was still very low, or you came very late when the viral load was already very low at the recovery stage. You might be someone that have a false negative result because of these two reasons. In this case, if you have any flu-like symptom, call 1519, go in any of our massive testing points, then you will be able to have either a positive or a negative result within our context, because we also have a very good quality control and a good quality assurance system in place.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joseph Okam. You are a virologist. The message is clear. Continue having yourself screened for COVID-19. Whether the results are positive or the results are negative, continue having yourself screened, because by so doing, you get to know your status, and we together help limit the spread of the deadly virus. Back to you, Gladys Tata.
Thanks very much, Baldwin Sama, and hope to be in your company tomorrow. The new Korean ambassador designated to Cameroon, His Excellency Kim Jong-un, reaffirms his country's commitment to cooperate with Cameroon in the domains of education, health and energy. He was speaking today in Yaoundé during an audience granted him by House Speaker Honorable Kava Yege Jibril. Both officials also talked on strengthening parliamentary ties between both nations, as Esther Kimat tells us.
It's been nearly 60 years that Cameroon enjoys fruitful relations with Korea, based on mutual respect and understanding. With House Speaker Honorable Kava Yege Jibril, the ambassador designates His Excellency Kim Jong-un, reassures that the entente between both nations will flame up, especially in parliamentary diplomacy.
Last year, Vice Speaker of Korean National Assembly visited Cameroon. I hope Cameroonian parliamentary delegation can visit Korea.
The 53-year-old diplomat commits himself for a more valuable cooperation.
Expanding to human resource education and public health and coronavirus quarantine cooperation.
Korea will continue to inject funds in the vocational training sector and in digital economy in Cameroon.
And on to this obituary, the remains of Delphine Changa, former member of the Electoral Board and pioneer female minister, were coffined this Friday at the Yaoundé mortuary of the Yaoundé Referral Hospital. The ceremony was attended, amongst others, by some members of government, Central Regional Governor, and the members of Electoral Board, ELECAM, and some of our former NUDP party comrades. Ebenezer Akangwa now profiles the political life of late Delphine Changa in the following report.
Delphine Changa was one of the first women in Cameroon to venture into politics. She was national president of the women's wing of the Cameroon National Union, CNU, the first woman to become member of parliament, and the first woman to be appointed minister. With the return of multi-party politics in the early 90s, Delphine Changa joined the National Union for Democracy and Progress, NUDP, a party she was a supporter till 2011, when she was appointed member of the Electoral Board of ELECAM.
It was in recognition of her experience in politics that immediately after she joined the party, she was admitted in the governing body of the party, the Central Committee. She was made member of a political bureau of our party and Vice President.
A long and rich political experience was a great asset to NUDP.
She always gave advice drawn from qualities of wisdom and experience. Our country lost a great lady.
It required a woman of strong character and conviction like Delphine Changa to carve a way in politics. At the time, it was a near taboo for women to venture into it.
And may her soul rest in perfect peace. Our Discovery page tonight takes us to the irresistible waterfalls in the northwest, south and west regions of the country for an appraisal of the site. The Lobe Waterfalls in Kribi, for example, has a natural vegetation that lures many to the area, while the Meche Waterfall in the west region serves not only as a touristic site, but is also a sacred place where people go to for spiritual cleansing. Rainatu Sali is our guide.
Swishing over the rocks joyfully, the Lobe Waterfalls in Kribi, south region of Cameroon, is an attraction to many. The falls are made up of a grouping of streams. The highest fall measures 20 meters in height before tumbling into the Atlantic Ocean. For decades now, this natural leisure site is host to many who visit for various reasons.
The mystical, we people from Kribi, water is our divinity. We believe in the spirit of water. We have it, we know it.
On the slopes of the Bamendankwe village in the northwest region is this waterfall which breezes into a cave, producing soft sounds. The breathtaking scenery used to be a touristic destination in the past, but today the socio-political crisis has made it difficult for tourists to come here.
When this forest was still really thick, this waterfall used to fall and it was compared to Menchum water then, Menchum 4. But now it is draining because the eucalyptus trees are draining a lot of water. Then when we had natural trees here, this place was wonderful.
Falling from a height of 40 meters, the Meche Fall in Bamungum is one of the touristic sites the West region can boast of. The over 60-year-old waterfall is considered sacred by the many tourists who visit for spiritual cleansing.
Renowned sportswoman Françoise Mbango is the proprietor of an institute that will train youths in various sports disciplines. She presented the facility Institut Françoise before the press in Yaoundé today. Take a listen.
The most important thing is what I am doing today, to give something for the future for our youngest so they can learn more about sports. I hope they will come to my institute and they will learn many things about sports.
Well, that is what we had for you this evening. Thanks for watching. But before we take leave of you, a recap of our major headlines. Torrential rains hit the city of Douala, flooding the town, impeding the movement of goods and persons, and destroying some houses. And in this newscast, you got details of the actual situation and to the reaction of Littoral Governor Samuel Dieudonné Ivaha Diboa. Plus, you heard that today was August 21, which marks 34 years since the worst natural disaster ever at Lake Nyos in the northwest region killed over 1,700 people and 33,500 animals. And what development projects can incite returnees? And that's what we got in this newscast. And the Cameroon's pioneer female minister, Delphine Changa, began her final journey to the world beyond. Her remains were coffined this Friday at the Yaoundé Referral Hospital mortuary in the presence of Central Regional Governor, who represented the head of state and other ministers and Elekam board members. Join Atabadine Umar at 8:30 for the news in French, and I'll be back tomorrow, same time. Until then, the technical crew join me in wishing you a pleasant night. Good night.
In this connection, we should avoid stigmatizing